Now this is what Sundays are made for. It's funny, there was a time where I used to wake up on Sunday and just go straight into work. Now I see Sunday as what it was made for: rest, recovery, and just taking some time to myself, do as little as possible, maybe prepare for the week, meal prep, go for a food shop. That's about it, and then just relax. A couple of years ago though, I would have felt guilty for doing so, and sometimes that does still come up. I have this like, oh, you should be doing something, like it's not productive, but I have to just remind myself that resting is one of the most productive things that you can do, because when you're well rested, that is when you're most productive. It's like if you were just to constantly run without ever stopping to refuel, you would break down, right? Well, it's the same when it comes to your work. It's the same when it comes to anything. I think hustle culture has us like trapped in this way of thinking and this belief system that we have to always constantly be working. We always have to constantly be moving forward. We have to always constantly be, pushing ourselves. And this mentality is mainstream because if you think about it, who does it benefit? If you are willing to sacrifice your health, your mental state, your family, your friends, your after work life, just so you can get ahead in front of who as well, but just so you can work harder, who does it benefit if we have a society where everyone thinks that way? Well, it benefits the people that own the businesses that are employing you. It doesn't benefit you. We're human beings, not human always doings, right? We have to take time to refill our cups. We have to take time to switch off. We have to take time to rest and relax. We have to take time for ourselves. We have to take time to socialize and connect. And I feel like ever since social media, there's been like a downward trajectory, and then 2020 came along and it just amplified that trajectory, where now it's like people didn't want to connect anymore. But I think as time's going on, people are realizing that they've got this hole within and they're feeling this way about their lives, and they're realizing like, shit, I'm lonely. Like, I spend all my time working, I'm just paying bills, I have no energy on the weekend, and then I do it all again. I don't see my friends, I don't see my family. What the fuck is this? Why am I doing this? This isn't life, this isn't living, this is like slowly dying. And it's true, man. Like no one warned us at school that, hey, when you leave school, like you're not going to see your friends as much, like, and when you get a little bit older and start working, you're hardly going to see your family too, which is fucking wild. And something that I've realized over the last year or something is that if you want these things to exist in your life, they don't have to fall away, but it do require effort. Every single relationship in your life requires effort, but the problem is, most of all, is that not only are we neglecting the relationships with other people, we are neglecting the most important relationship that we have, and that relationship is with ourselves. We're not being true with ourselves. We're not, ironically, in a place where we want to be able to say that we are happy. I think a lot of us are just doing things because we think we have to, or because it is expected of us, or because we don't necessarily have a choice. It's just like, we always have a choice. You might not like your situation right now, a lot of us don't, but you don't have to stay in that situation. What are you doing each and every day, even if it's just 10 minutes, to work on changing that situation? Because at the end of the day, if you don't change the situation, then you will stay in it. And if you stay in it and you're saying that you don't like it, well, then it's your own fault. And a lot of people get stuck in this because they enjoy the comfort of being the victim. Oh, it's everyone else's fault, it's the government's fault, it's my teacher's fault, it's my parents' fault, it's my girlfriend's fault. It's everyone else's fault but your own. But what you do when you blame someone else is you're just outsourcing your power. You're saying, my life is this way because of that. And that's not true. Your life is not that way because of that. Your life is this way because of you. And when you start to accept that, radical acceptance, that's when you will start taking responsibility for yourself, taking responsibility for your life, taking responsibility for your actions and the way things are, and then you will start to change it. But until you admit yourself, holy shit, I'm in this situation because I've chosen to be here through the things that I've done and the decisions that I've made. Well, what are the decisions that I've made that got me to this point? What is it that I don't like, and what decisions do I need to make in the future that are going to be different, that are going to change my situation? That's how you get out of the hole that you're in. But facing that means taking responsibility, which some people can't face because it's like they don't, somewhere along the line, they can't tolerate blame. And taking responsibility feels like blame to them. They feel like they're blaming themselves for the situation, and that's not it at all. There are some things that happen to us in life that are outside of our control. There are things that are unpredictable, and things happen and it's like, cool, that was shit. But we move on. But a lot of people don't move on, and they get stuck in this like meh, 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 meh. And it's just self-destructive. I think a lot of my 20s and my teens, my late teens, when I discovered alcohol and drugs, I was in a similar boat. I don't think I looked happy on the outside, but I definitely wasn't happy on the inside. I didn't know it at the time, but obviously now that I know what I know about escapism and I guess the things that you can use for escapism, I realized that I used to drink excessively, I used to take drugs excessively, and I did it under the guise of hedonism or just having a good time and fun. But when all those things wore off, I felt like shit, and I thought, it's just a come down or it's just a hangover. But no, not really. It was my emotions catching up with me. So when you go to either extreme or on either end of the spectrum, you're hit with the opposite one afterwards. So if I go to extreme pleasure, let's say by taking loads of drugs, well, then on the opposite side of that is a come down. We label it a come down, but in actual fact, that's just branding so that you don't actually deep what it is, and you'll do it again. But really what is coming up for you, it's not a come down, it's a come up. What's coming up is the emotions that you've been fucking suppressing. And don't get me wrong, that every time you do drugs, you're doing this. You can take drugs responsibly, recreationally, and with intent. But I think for the most part, we don't. We do it to escape, unfortunately. And it works the other way as well. When you have something that's extremely painful, the board flips on the other side and you feel, an opposite emotion of pleasure. A good example of this would be like going through grief of a family one that's just passed away. There was a time where I lost a family member. It felt like shit. I grieved. I was sad for a while. But then after a while, you start, you felt this and you kind of get over it. And then once you start getting over it, you start thinking about all the good times that you had with that person. You start thinking about all the insights that they gave you, all the experiences, the impact that they had on your life, the love that you have for them then, now, and forever. And you can only get there once you felt the pain. So pain and pleasure are brother and sister. We try and avoid pain because we think it's undesirable, when in actual fact, pain sometimes is necessary in order to get us to the other side. And vice versa, if we indulge too much in pleasure, well, then we will experience the opposite force of pain. We can't chase either. We have to try and live in the balanced state in the middle. Of course, life happens, we get tipped to either side. That's out of our control. But it's about recognizing that these two come together and we can't have one without the other. And it all just comes down to emotions again at the end of the day. I think one of the biggest crimes in society in a whole is that we're never taught how to feel our emotions. Our parents weren't taught, their parents didn't teach them, their parents' didn't teach them, and we were never taught by anyone, not at school, not by our parents, because they don't know how to do it. But we do know how to do it, and we know how important it is. So why isn't it taught to us? Why aren't we taught from a very young age how to sit and feel, how to be present and allow the emotions to come up and process them, how to label emotions, how to express emotions in a healthy, constructive way rather than a toxic, destructive way? But it, you know, just because we haven't been taught these things, it isn't an excuse for us to ignore our feelings. I think something that me and Pearls have been doing for just over 2 years has been trying to feel our feelings, I guess, or I say feeling our feelings. And it's been tough. It's like, it's an ongoing quest, because sometimes you're really good at it, other times you're really bad at it, and other times you try but you just don't get anywhere. Like, I've had conversations with Pearls and she's like, what you feeling? I'm like, I have no idea, but I feel something. It don't feel good. But sometimes that's enough. You don't necessarily even have to label emotions. You can just describe the feeling. You know, that feels icky. This feels warm and fuzzy. This feels like a hug. You can work out the labels another time. Describe where it is you're feeling it and what it feels like to you, because, you know, emotions are kind of like colors. What I see as red, you might see as something completely different if you're colorblind. Yeah, we both call it red, but we will never know, because how can we describe to each other or show each other, hey, this is my red, this is your red? Yeah, we both think we're seeing the same color, but our eyes are painting a different picture. It's the same with emotions. What feels like anxiety to me, it might not feel like anxiety to you. It might feel like excitement, it might feel like anger. What feels like sadness to me might feel like something else to you. So as much as we can learn from other people, it's about being inquisitive to ourselves and you know, exploring what our bodies are telling us. But we can only explore what our bodies are telling us when we stop to listen. If we're just moving all the time, we're constantly keeping ourselves busy, we're constantly keeping ourselves working, we're constantly overthinking, we're constantly multitasking, even when we're eating or we're watching TV at the same time, or YouTube, or on our phone scrolling, we're not giving any space for those feelings to come up. And this is the point. This is why we do it. We might not realize this is why we're doing it, but we've become so pacified by these cheap outlets of dopamine that we do this stuff habitually whenever we feel discomfort, without realizing that we're even avoiding the discomfort. We'll have an argument with someone, rather than sitting there and thinking about what we've said or what they've said or how we feel about it, we go and sit on our phones. We've had a really shit week at work. Rather than doing something to fill our cup over the weekends, we go out and drink ourselves until, you know, Monday comes, and then we wake up feeling like absolute shit, having to drag ourselves through the week again, not realizing that we felt that way the previous Monday, and that's probably at least added to the reason that we had a shit week in the first place. So it becomes a vicious cycle, and it comes back to that pain pleasure thing. When you start avoiding either or, this is when disharmony happens. This is when you become dysregulated, and this is where shit goes sideways. You have to be courageous enough to start feeling your feelings, and it is scary, but you don't have to feel them all at once. You feel them bit by bit. Even if you know, for example, of something that you might have been suppressing, like, I don't know, you went through some sort of trauma and you know that it was heavy, and you've got some shit that you're like, oh, this is affecting my life. I know I've got some emotions, but I don't know what it is. That doesn't mean that when you go, all right, I'm going to feel my emotions about this, that the first time you do it, you're going to feel fucking everything at once. There's a reason that your body suppressed it in the first place, because it didn't want you to be overwhelmed. So when you start doing this work, you do it bit by bit. It's layer by layer. It doesn't all come up at once anyway, so it's manageable. It's just scary at first because you don't know how to do it, and you think that it is going to be more than it is. But emotions will never hurt you. Emotions just want to be felt.